Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. What I've got on the table here is an assortment of discontinued guns. So these were all mainstream production and have been discontinued by the manufacturer. Some of these have been replaced by some new version that's supposed to take over the slot they occupied. For example, the P99 AS has been replaced by the PPQ. So these are ones that if you find them in the used case, which is where you might find yourself shopping with things going on right now, or maybe your budget drives you there, these are guns that if you buy them for the purpose of home defense or concealed carry, with the exception of the 22 over here, which is more just a fun gun, they've been proven reliable. And for us, every one of these was reliable from first contact. This one here got new or used, but it worked from the moment I got it. Didn't have to do anything to it other than clean it like any of the others. So you're going to get a reliable gun. So let's kind of go through them and talk about some of their high-level features. Every one of these we've got a full review on. I'll have a long list of links in the description of the reviews to each one of these if you want more details about a particular one. But I'm just going to give you kind of the high-level details on it. And I've also double cleared these. I've cleared these and Hammer has cleared every one of these. So every one of these guns is known to be safe. So let's start with this one here, which is the Walther PPS. And you might be inclined to say, well, no, it's not discontinued. They're still making those. Well, they are. They're making the M2 version of it, which has a more PPQ-ish sculpted grip, and it disposes of the paddle release and goes to a button release. Well, the paddle's actually quite nice. Number one, it's ambidextrous. You see I'm actually operating it on this side, or I can operate it on this side, whichever one I see fit. And what I've found is that this more squared off or flattish, rectangularish grip tends to be actually a little easier to get a hold of in a gun this size, get a good solid grip on, and be able to shoot it well. The PPS M2, at one point one of us picked one up, and neither of us could shoot it well. Just like any Walther or any modern polymer gun, it's easy to maintain. Pulled on these two little tabs, it comes apart. It's really easy to clean. It has replaceable back straps, which is actually kind of uncommon in these single stack guns. A lot of these single stack guns, it comes in one size and that's the size it comes in. So overall, it's an inexpensive gun. At the time that these things were new, they first weren't. These were almost $600. Then they dropped to $400, and then they dropped to sub $300 for a new one. And when the M2 came out, the price drove down a little bit further. So if you find one of these in the used case, it's probably going to be reasonably priced, not necessarily accounting for current circumstances. Everything's kind of jacked up right now, but it'll be less jacked up than others. This particular one is in 9mm. They did make a version of this in 40, but it wasn't all that pleasant to shoot. So you might want to stick for looking for the 9mm. Though, because the 40 was a little unpleasant, you might have an easier time finding one because kind of nobody wants one. It's got one single slot rail and nice big 3-dot sights. So this one would be a good choice for both home defense and concealed carry. 6, 7, and 8 round capacities. I've got the flush magazine in it, which is 6 rounds. So let's move to the next one. I've got another Walther. This one is the Walther Creed. And this is a larger gun, and push button release is not ambidextrous, and of course it's empty. And this one holds 15 rounds. So you get decent capacity. It's got the sculpted grip similar to the PPQ. It was kind of a budget gun in the Walther lineup, so it doesn't have the replaceable back straps that the PPQ does. It is hammer fired, not striker fired, but it behaves like a striker fired gun. So the trigger pull is consistent every time, and the trigger on this is actually about as close to a PPQ you're going to get without having a PPQ. Like most Walthers, it has really nice bright 3-dot sights, and it was inexpensive when it was new. It was inexpensive when it was in production, and they were reliable when they were new. So I've had no reason to believe this wouldn't continue to be reliable and probably be reasonably priced. The only thing I would say on these, unlike a lot of the guns that that we're going to show you, I don't know if this is a high mileage gun. If this one gets significant round counts, I don't know if it'll be as durable as some of the others. Oh, and one other thing, it's got a relatively easy to rack slide. Of course, it's easier to demonstrate it if it pops the magazine out, but the slide's relatively easy to rack. So if you're looking for a gun for somebody that has somewhat limited hand strength, but wants a full size or a full caliber 9mm, this is probably a good choice. It's going to be reliable, and they're not as available maybe, but if you stumble across one in the use case and it looks to be well taken care of, you might want to snag it up. The next one I've got is kind of right here in the corner of the screen, is the Springfield XDS. Now the XDS, this came in 940 and 45. This particular one happens to be a 45. And a 45 is a little bit of a hand fill, but surprisingly it's actually easy to control and comfortable to shoot. Let me get the magazine out of it. These are really high quality guns. Nice 3-dot sights with a fiber optic sight. And the only thing that this grip sleeve's put around it just to kind of get a little bit more grip on it, especially in a 45. But even without that, it's actually quite a reliable gun. It's got a grip safety. Had to notch the grip sleeve a little bit to make room for the grip safety. And these are now still available in the Mod 2, but the original one, again, is kind of squarish. And it's just this type of gun, this size gun, at least for me, slightly squarer grip or flatter rectangular grip is easier to get a hold of and easier to comfortably hold on to than some of these really ergonomic looking but not so ergonomic feeling grips. These were in the 500s new, so they were a little on the pricier side, but right now, given the fact that there is a Mod 2 available, that's going to drive people's interest on the new side. You should be able to pick one of these up at a much more reasonable price if you can stumble across one. And I almost failed to mention it's got an ambi mag release right from the factory. So no changing, no swapping, no gunsmithing at all. It's ready to go. And they've got a decent trigger. I wouldn't say it's the best trigger. It's kind of got a stiff wall, but it's got a decent trigger. And it does have a single slot Picatinny rail if you want to put a lighter laser on it. So if you're looking for a high quality, a little more solid offering, something in the single stack concealed carry realm as well as home defense, this might do the job for you. This one's a little bit stranger entry in here, and this is the Browning High Power. And these have been around for many, many years. This is one of the original Browning designs, one of the original automatics. I'm not going to say the original, but one of these. It has been cloned countless manufacturers. There's a current production clone of this that's running around $500. I think it's a Turkish manufacturer. But the design has been around for a long time. And what I can tell you is this one that happens to hold 13 rounds, this one was purchase used, the only gun on the table that I got used. And as you can see, it's a hammer gun. This one, based upon the description when I bought it and just looking at it, was carried probably on a daily basis by a police officer or somebody in the military. I'm kind of leaning towards police. You can see wear on the frame that would indicate holster wear, a significant amount of holster wear. But he also took care of it. Internally, the components are pristine. And like I mentioned early on all of these, they worked from day one. This one's no exception. I got it, I cleaned it like I do every other gun, took it to the range and started pulling the trigger and it started going bang. These are a little pricier. You can get them, probably about the minimum would be $500 to get that clone, and then up from there. If you get one that's in cherry condition, one of the older ones in cherry condition, you might have a comma in the numbers. They're not always as necessarily as cheap. But if you stumble across one of these, and despite the wear on the body, if it's mechanically been well taken care of, they're proven reliable. Yeah, this one here, just an example of that. The one thing to look for, the cracked grips. This one does not have cracked grips. Often these have cracked grips. That's just a cat hair and a scratch. But, so look for that. If the grips are cracked, pass along. The grips are kind of hard to find. and if they're cracked, it's going to bite in and pinch your hand, and eventually they're just going to come apart and chunks are going to come off. So make sure that if you pick one of these up, make sure the barrel's in good condition, make sure that there's not a lot of slop in it, that there should be minimal movement in the slide and everything else, and that the grips are in good shape. But of old guns that you may find used, and in this case fairly old guns, this would be a good choice. A little less for the concealed carry realm, they're a little bit heavier. Definitely perfect for outside the waistband if you live someplace where you can carry, for example, open carry, or for home defense. It's a good choice. And then to top it all off, it's just a lot of fun to shoot. So we've got almost out of guns on the table. I've got a Walther P99C here.
Can you send it for me? Yeah.
Hey. Box or not? And this gun it's a very unique gun. It's kind of an interesting gun. This predated the PPQ, and this has also been cloned a number of times by different manufacturers. That it really is basically the predecessor to the PPQ. This particular one has the AS trigger, which has some kind of unique characteristics, like when you pull back on it, it starts out, you pull back on it, and it locks into position. But this also has a very, very PPQ-like trigger, which does make sense. The PPQ is based on it. This happens to be the C version. This is a 9mm P99C. Has the paddle release. It's got a relatively easy to operate slide, and you can get extended mags for it that blend in with the grip, and this is not a pinch point. It blends in nicely and gives you a full-size grip. There is a regular size or a standard size version of this that's got the full-size grip to begin with, but the C is perfect because you got carry, nightstand. You got one gun that can do both, and it's seamless. Unlike the Glocks, for example, where the extended magazines work, but they don't blend in with the grip, all of the Walthers really do a good job of making the grips blend in. Springfield Armory with their XDM series does that same good quality job. But these are really, really nice to shoot. They're reliable, and they just work. Nice 3-dot sights, striker cocked indicator, all the kind of the features that you're used to on the modern guns. This really is a modern gun despite being discontinued. And these were 400-ish when they were still in production. Now the one thing I noted with these, the 9mm became very difficult to find fairly quickly once they announced they were discontinued. The 9mm just disappeared, and this was before everything started that's going on now. But the 40s were everywhere. The 40 on this I don't believe is all that pleasant. The 9mm is quite pleasant to shoot. So you may have an easier time finding a 40, but like a lot of people, you may not really want a 40 in this small of a gun. So the Walther P99, either the C or the regular one, is another good choice for both home defense and concealed carry. Now for the last one on the table, keep in mind that life is not all about business. Sometimes life is just about fun. This is the 6-hour 1911-22. This is one of the higher quality builds of 22 caliber 1911s. The 22 caliber 1911s kind of get a bad rap of being either unreliable, 2/3 size, or made out of inferior materials so they don't hold up. That's really not the case with this one. It's full size, so it's a full size 1911. It's fairly heavy. It's almost regular 1911 weight. The slide is lighter, but it's also very easy to cycle. But one of the things we found with this guy is it didn't matter what we fed it, from the highest quality CCI ammo to whatever junk was available in a bucket. This thing just ate it and worked. It's relatively easy to maintain. Now one negative is it does require a tool, which it comes with. You pull this screw out, and when you pull this screw out, it will allow you to remove this, which will then allow you to take a pin out. It's kind of like, step by step, that part comes apart, and then the whole slide comes off, and it's easy to maintain. Once you've got it apart, it's easy to maintain and it's easy to put back together, and the only tool you need is that one tool to take that screw out. You can change the grips. Now one note, and we've got a video on this, They're not exactly 1911 grips. They're just a hair different than 1911 grips. So not all 1911 grips will fit it, and sometimes you have to do different things with the screws. But it's easy to do, and there's enough of these out there that there's enough companies making grips for them. Now this, as the Sig Sauer in this particular iteration, is going to be hard to find. If you stumble across one of these in the use case and you're looking for a fun gun, not a defensive gun, go ahead and snag one of these up. They are still manufactured by GSG under a different naming, and they're similar guns manufactured by other companies, but they may not have the same durability and functionality that this one has. These were kind of made by GSG for SIG to SIG specs, and SIG put their name on them. Now, as far as pricing, I don't know what they'll go for right now because they're out of production, but at the time SIG was selling them, SIG was proud of them like they are everything they make, so they had SIG prices, and they really didn't sell that well. When the price went down and SIG started giving away as part of a promotion, you buy a SIG gun and you got one of these either free or at a discount, I don't remember which way it went, then the market kind of got flooded with them. There's probably still quite a few of them out there. This one, every time we take it out, just works, and like any gun, you maintain it and keep it in good condition. So if you're planning on hitting the pawn shops, the gun show circuit, and things like that, you might see some of these guns that I showed you and not have seen them in the new case. So you might have a list you can take with you of good quality, reliable guns that you may not know about because they predate your hunting for guns that are good choices and would be reliable for you. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to get notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, Instagram. We're kind of all over the place. And thank you.